We know why you came here. But it's a fact we are ruling here.
The sky above the celestial arena shimmered like molten glass, a dome of blue fire reflecting off the curved hulls of ships from 100 different worlds. Beneath that brilliance stood the galaxy's greatest fighters, towering Zarthans with crystalline armor, serpentine Riverian duelists, the telekinetic Sisters, and the elite commanders of the Karth Dominion. Every race in attendance had one thing in common. They believed themselves stronger, faster, and far superior to humans. And today, for the first time, humans had been invited to train among them. The announcement had been met with laughter across the stars. Humans. The fragile little species from the blue planet that still used iron weapons only a few centuries ago. The galaxy had expected their participation to be comic relief, a spectacle of weakness. But what the warriors saw that day would silence entire star systems. 1. The arrival of the weak. Captain Aaron Soul of Earth's Defense Corps stepped onto the arena sand with 40 others. None of them wore armor. No exosuits, no plasma shields, no biomech augmentations. Just sweat-darkened shirts, bandaged knuckles, and simple training boots. A ripple of laughter went through the alien ranks. From the stands, a Zarthan general whispered to his aide, "Are they here to train or to die?" But Aaron didn't flinch. He stood still, hands behind his back, while his soldiers formed lines behind him. Silent, eyes focused. When the arena overseer, a six-eyed Varen named Lathyra, stepped forward, her voice thundered through the stadium. Humans of soul. Today you will train before the galaxy's elite. Demonstrate your methods. Show us why your world seeks entry into the Interstellar Defense Accord. Aaron only nodded. Yes, Overseer. We'll begin now. Lathyra smirked. Begin. With what? Warm up, he said simply. To the warm-up. Started small. The humans dropped to the ground, pushing their bodies up and down in perfect rhythm. 1,000 alien eyes blinked. They are moving against gravity, one Varen whispered. Perhaps a ritual, another said. Minutes passed. The humans kept going. Push-ups, squats, pull-ups, running laps around the massive arena under the twin suns. The aliens began to shift uncomfortably. They had seen endurance drills, of course, but this was different. There was no pause. No command shouted. Just a silent, synchronized rhythm. Every breath, every motion unified like clockwork. After 30 minutes, their shirts were soaked, their bodies trembling. Yet their eyes still burned with something primal. The Zarthan general frowned. Their muscles should have torn by now. Their gravity is heavier on Earth. They are pushing themselves beyond limit. Beside him, a Riverian champion hissed. They do not stop. They refuse to stop. 3. The combat drill. Demonstrate your combat methods, Lathyra ordered finally, her voice less certain now. Aaron called forward one of his lieutenants, Sergeant Lyra Mendez, a woman barely reaching the shoulder of most aliens. She tied her hair into a knot and faced her opponent, a towering Riverian warrior armed with twin plasma daggers. The crowd murmured, expecting her instant defeat. Lathyra raised her arm. Begin. The Riverian struck fast, blades slicing the air. The human didn't move, not until the last second when she ducked, twisted, and slammed her elbow into the alien's side. The crack of bone echoed through the arena. The Riverian staggered. Furious, he lunged again. Lyra dropped low, swept his leg, and used his own momentum to flip him over her shoulder. He hit the ground so hard the sand burst into a cloud. When the dust settled, the galaxy's finest could only stare. The human stepped back, breathing hard but calm. Yield, she said softly. The Riverian did. For the code of the week. Later, during the break, the warriors gathered around the humans' camp. "You fight without enhancements," said the Karth commander, his mechanical voice buzzing. "You could double your strength with our technology." Aaron shrugged. "We don't need it." "Why?" "Because the only strength that matters," Aaron said, "is the kind that doesn't need to be recharged." He pointed to his soldiers, bruised, bleeding, exhausted. "You can break our bones, but you can't teach spirit. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because we had to. On Earth, survival is a teacher with no mercy." A silence followed his words, the kind that hums like static in the air. Then a Zarthan soldier muttered, almost to himself, "Perhaps weakness is a kind of strength." 5. The Test of Fear. The next day brought the Test of Fear, a simulation designed to expose psychological weakness. Each participant was placed in an isolation chamber, where holograms generated their worst fears. Most alien races used neural stabilizers or telepathic dampeners for this test. Humans entered bare-minded. Lathyra, curious, watched through the monitors as the first human subject was engulfed in his illusion. Flames, screams, the ruins of a city. He trembled, gasped, and then stood still. "What is he doing?" a Varen technician asked. "He's facing it," Lathyra whispered. The man walked through the fire, unblinking. He reached the holographic child crying in the rubble and carried her through the inferno. When the simulation ended, he fell to his knees, sobbing quietly. And yet, when the doors opened, he rose, saluted, and said, "Ready for the next test, ma'am." By the end of the trial, 20 humans had completed the simulation, more than any other race ever recorded. 6. The training ground falls silent. By the third day, the laughter was gone. The galaxy's strongest stood watching, not mocking, as humans sparred, lifted, shouted, and pushed each other to limits that made even biomech warriors hesitate. Their drills were brutal, endless runs under scorching heat, combat in mud, breathless sparring until both fighters collapsed, only to rise again, laughing through pain. There was no glory, no shining armor, no mystical powers, only grit, teamwork, and the terrifying human refusal to quit. Even Lathyra began watching with quiet reverence. These fragile creatures. They bled more easily, broke more easily, and yet they stood up every time. 7. The challenge of the arena. On the final day, the Overseer announced the traditional final match. Humans versus the galaxy's champions. 5 humans against 5 aliens. Aaron's soul stepped forward, expression unreadable. "Accepted." The stadium roared as the champions entered. A Karth juggernaut, a Riverian assassin, a Vera telepath, a Zarthan brute, and the warlord of Nra himself. 7 feet of pure muscle and cybernetic rage. The humans lined up opposite. Aaron, Lyra, and 3 others, unarmored, unarmed. The match began with thunder. The Karth juggernaut charged, shaking the ground. Aaron rolled aside, kicked off the sand, and struck the giant's knee. It barely staggered him, but then Lyra leaped, planting both boots into his face. The juggernaut crashed down like a collapsing tower. The Vera tried to use telepathy, but human minds, raw and scarred by trauma, were chaos itself. She screamed, clutching her head. The Riverian assassin danced around Lyra, until she smiled faintly, feigned weakness, and caught his wrist mid-strike, twisting it until his blade fell. Then came the warlord. He towered over Aaron, breathing steam from his cybernetic lungs. "You fight well, human," he growled. "But this ends now." He swung, a blow that could shatter steel. Aaron barely dodged, the wind from the strike tearing his sleeve. Again and again the alien attacked. Aaron could hardly keep up. His ribs cracked, his arm hung limp. But when he fell to one knee, he looked up with that same fire the galaxy had come to fear. "Still not done," he said. And he charged. 8. The moment the galaxy remembered. The crowd rose to its feet as Aaron landed one last strike, a desperate leap that brought him crashing into the warlord's chest. They both went down, tangled in dust and fury. When the haze cleared, the warlord lay still. Eren stood swaying, blood streaming down his face. But he was standing. Silence filled the arena. Not a whisper, not a breath. Every warrior, every general, every champion, silent. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as weak, not as primitive, but as something terrifyingly pure. Strength without augmentation. Courage without promise of victory. 9. After the silence. When it was over, Lathyra descended the arena steps and faced Eren. "You have nothing we expected," she said quietly. "No power, no magic, no weapon. Yet you stand above us." Eren shook his head. "No, we just stand with each other. That's our secret." She smiled faintly, something no Varen had done in centuries. "Then perhaps the galaxy has much to learn from humanity." Word of the training spread like wildfire. Across systems the story was told. The day the warriors fell silent, no longer were humans seen as weak. They became the measure of willpower, the embodiment of defiance. 10. Epilogue: The New Dawn. Years later, the Interstellar Defense Accord held its first joint ceremony. The flag of Earth was raised beside those of the great empires. Lyra stood among the crowd, watching young alien cadets doing human-style drills, push-ups, running, shouting, "One more!" Just like the Earth soldiers had done that day. A Zarthan instructor barked, "Why do we train like humans?" A young recruit answered, "Because they taught us the meaning of strength." High above them, the stars gleamed, cold, eternal, watching the rise of a race once mocked for its weakness. A race that showed the galaxy that true power comes not from the body, but from the heart that refuses to yield.